Laura, welcome to Future Speak. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest today.
I try to make it practical and simple when I train on it in organizations. And I try to use personal examples as well, just to make it more real, that a lot of us who appear like we're doing great maybe aren't, or have had a tough situation in their family or in their past. And I think the more we can open up about that to one another, the better, because it destigmatizes mental health.
Laura, welcome to Future Speak. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest today. We're here, as you know, to talk about the future of work, and I'm really keen to learn about your personal experiences with it, particularly because of your expertise as an organisational psychologist. You're also a serial entrepreneur. I know you've written many books. So you come from a place of great understanding, which many people don't. So before we really get into it, I'd love you to introduce yourself and just tell us all a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I am a workplace psychologist as well as trained as a counseling psychologist. I dedicated my career to helping people thrive at work and helping organizations be better places to be and building better leaders. So I feel that people spend a lot of their waking time at work or thinking about work. It's a part of their identity. So I decided that that's what I would focus my career on. I'm a mother of 3. My oldest is 16. My youngest is 11. I'm a flexible worker. I'm in the office right now, but I'm 2 days from home, 3 days from the office. I've done that for about 15 years. I've been a psychologist for, well, it's getting close to 20 years. I've been in the field of psychology practicing. I've started several different businesses and practices throughout Canada. And interestingly enough, my specialty in my doctorate was remote leadership and how you lead a thriving team when you're at a distance and how you have effective team dynamics on a virtual team. And we created the world's first personality profile of a remote worker because we really wanted to understand why some people thrive working remotely and why some people struggle. So we determined the personality factors. My partner in that is a professor who's excellent at the stats, and we had that profiled in Scientific American magazine in 2014. So we got a real head start. And then when COVID hit and the whole world kind of pivoted and started to, be pushed or forced into remote, we were ready to help. And our company got acquired by Humans, which is a national consulting firm in Canada specializing in culture and performance. So that's where we live and where we're trying to make a difference globally around workplace culture, especially in hybrid and remote workplaces.
Wow, I'm talking to the right person today. So Laura, gosh, I mean, how ahead of your time were you with everything, your doctorate, etc.? So
Super. I always like cutting edge topics. So I was super a pioneer in this topic, right? It feels like we've been researching it and writing about it forever. But interestingly enough, nobody could have predicted this pandemic and the other impacts of it, the mental health impacts of it, the uncertainty and challenges of our world. All of this is coming together where my whole psychology career has been useful, including the counseling psychology masters that I have.
So I'm going to take you back now, and I'm going to say, when we look at the future of work, what does it mean to you?
The future of work means we need to seize the day and to make work a more fulfilling experience. I think that the workplace has become very challenging for a lot of people. And I think a lot of organizations, especially as they grow and it becomes all about bottom line, they lose the focus on the people. And I think what the pandemic's done is really tip the scale in favor of, wait a minute, there's a human being not a human doing here. There's a human being at the center of it. And we need to really look at how work can be more engaging, fulfilling, and healthy, and not this attack on our spirits and our health and our soul. And, I'm being dramatic, but I would argue that there's a lot of toxic workplaces, a lot of difficult leaders, and a lot of unfulfilled people who are in careers for maybe the wrong reason, and they feel stuck and trapped because of bills and finances and security. And I guess my goal for the future of work is for it to be more fulfilling, and personally healthy, and rewarding, at all levels, not just financial.
Yeah, and it's all about the human, isn't it? Because that fulfillment comes from that. Just before we came on today, we had a brief discussion about the mental health aspect of what we're seeing, both post-pandemic, and we're now in this phase, aren't we, where we're all defining our future of work. None of us are going to come up with the answers tomorrow, right? But because we're looking for those answers and we're looking for people to give us the answers, it's almost like two worlds colliding, isn't it? We've got the impact from COVID. We've got people who don't deal with uncertainty trying to deal with that. What are you seeing in terms of the challenges around all of this right now?
Huge challenges. So a period of prolonged uncertainty is really difficult on human beings. And I often have a slide with a tornado on it saying there's all of these external factors going on: the pandemic, the polarization around the pandemic, the world unrest, the war in the Ukraine. It's just all converging at this level of, there's so many unknown factors, plus inflation, economies, price of fuel. There's just so much going on. And at the same time, it just feels, wow, we're into 26 months of this uncertainty around the pandemic. And I think the impacts on mental health have been huge. Really, really huge. And there's about a third, the latest stats in our country, Canada, is about a third of people are struggling with mental health right now, significantly, like really struggling with their mental health. And we've been tracking this data all along, and it keeps going up. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was more, we're all in this together. And there was definitely almost a honeymoon phase in some ways with the flexibility. But for others, there were kids at home and there were challenges, and there's been isolation for so many. And I would say it's really been a mixed bag for a lot of people. And I think this mental health crisis is at a peak right now out there. It's a real concern, and we need to all be banding together and really supporting people through this, so we don't lose more people to mental health, death because of mental health, whether that's an overdose due to an addiction, which is the way people self-treat mental health sometimes, or whether it's suicide. I even heard about another one with one of our clients yesterday, and it's just so traumatic, and the mental health impacts are just so concerning.
They are, aren't they? And it's when you put it in that reality, it becomes very stark, doesn't it? And it goes back to what we were saying earlier, that it's all well and good talking about these numbers in terms of, X million jobs will be gone, X million jobs will be made, and, huge percentages of jobs that we're not aware of yet will be here by 2030. On some people who can't deal with that change or haven't got the capability to, we've got to get away from the fact that that's wrong and learn to deal and put something in place to help people. And on this scale, this is going to be something that's really, really hard to do, isn't it?
Yes, but it starts one leader at a time, one person at a time, one colleague at a time, and there's definitely some really key, skills and learnings that oftentimes when I train on it, it's, some of it is simple. It's back to the basics of caring, empathy, listening. But those skills aren't that basic for a lot of us, right? We weren't
Mm.
trained as kids to practice empathy. It depended on our parents and our families whether empathy was something we were exposed to early on, or our teachers or our coaches. But I would say that empathy, I would say that wellness, not treating our bodies like machines, and really a focus on the brain health as well. Because I think too often we haven't really focused on the brain, and now all the science that's coming out is just telling us this, that a healthy brain is just so critical, and there are ways to keep your brain healthy, and be more mindful and present. And yeah, so all of this, I could go on and on, but I try to make it practical and simple when I train on it in organizations. And I try to use personal examples as well, just to make it more real, that a lot of us who appear like we're doing great maybe aren't, or have had
Mm.
a tough situation in their family or in their past. And I think the more we can open up about that to one another, the better, because it destigmatizes mental health.
You made a really interesting point here, and it's something that a lot of us don't think about, and that's brain health.
Mhm.
And the best way I can relate to it is I went to the opticians uh, 18 months ago, and the guy said, well, what's happened? And I was explaining that I'd been to the doctors, I'd had severe headaches, and they couldn't find anything wrong, and they'd done all sorts of blood tests. So it was a little bit of a, this isn't a great time, is it? And it turns out that because of the hours that I work, I needed glasses early. So for a lot of people who are watching this today, that kind of thing, brain health and understanding it better is going to be really important to them. Laura, can you tell us a bit more about what good brain health is?
Wow. Yes, I definitely can. And I've tried to produce, to talk to the experts on it as well. So there's a neuro doctor of neurobiology. I can't remember, but I interviewed on my podcast, Dr. Laura, Where Work Meets Life is my podcast. And it was on optimizing your brilliant brain for work-life wellness. And we talked all about the brain from someone who specializes in the brain at the Cleveland Clinic in the US, which, is a very reputable source. And but the things I learned from her, and the things I've learned in my field of psychology and from my own practice, is that the brain is not a computer that you just leave plugged in all the time. You need to recharge it like a battery and refuel it and nurture it. And it's through really, I mean, four different things. It's mindfulness and reflection, and that's where meditation comes in really, really handy. And I got into meditation during the pandemic. Before that, I dabbled in it, but it never really stuck. And during the pandemic, I got involved in a 21 days of meditation with Deepak Chopra, and it really
Wow.
changed my life. It really did. And now it's become a habit. But I'd say meditation or mindfulness, or that sort of time to reflect and let the mind relax and be in a state of having more downtime and clarity. And that's, people say, oh, that's sleeping, right? That's like, isn't that what sleeping's for? But if you have a very active brain, like a lot of us do, it's firing all these packets of information
Mm.
all the time, and you're not giving it a break, right? It's like driving a car and never stopping the car, and the car is just like wearing and tearing. And I think so, mindfulness, meditation, and then eating well, exercising, obvious, but we forget about that. Exercising, eating, and then what's the last one? Well, connecting is huge, like interpersonal, caring, connecting deeply with other human beings, friends, whoever it is, but having those connections. And then the fourth thing is sleep, like having healthy sleep.
Mm.
I've podcasted on that. I think a lot of us don't have healthy sleep habits and restorative sleep. So there, lots of things, right? So
Lots of things, but it's so easy to forget, either through excitement or fear. You got a lot on, and the one word I'm hearing a lot right now is I'm busy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm busy, busy, busy. And it's yeah, we're all busy, but we choose what to be busy with. It's all about the choices that we make. And I think our society has put it as a badge of honor to be really busy. But what it's doing is it's leading to unhealthy brains and unhealthy spirits, because we're just so tapped out. We don't have any time for reflection, self-care, wellness, even connecting. Sometimes if we absorb ourselves in too much work addiction, very real. And work addiction is a real problem out there, I'd say.
Oh, and if I'm honest, I'm in it. I'm one of those, you know? I'll be with you soon, I promise. I won't work on Sunday, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
To my poor husband, and it's
Aw.
it's a thing. It is a thing, and I'm surrounded with people like me who do just the same. So you can normalize it, right? But
Oh,
you're right. It's not healthy.
oh yeah, yeah. You normalize it because that's the thing to do. And if you're the one who's getting off at 4:30 or 5, what are you doing, right? You seem like you're a bit lazy, right? And it's like, yeah, I think long hours don't equate to productivity. Not taking breaks doesn't equate to productivity. Taking a walking meeting, getting fresh air steps and having your meeting walking, trying to incorporate that, so powerful. The innovative creative mind does best when it has nature and fresh air and all of that, rather than being in a stifling office. So, and I love that nature's in your background. I love that. I think it's great. I thought, is that a real background? It looks so perfect, right? But I think we need to have more nature indoors and outdoors. And my mentor, who's based in Belgium, he specializes in bringing nature into work. And it's just, I think that's so important as well for wellness.
Oh, it is, isn't it? And there's
Yeah.
nothing more invigorating. On the one hand, you can hear people talk mechanically about the fact, oh, we're going to do 10,000 steps today, versus someone else who says, you know what, I've had a most fabulous walk. And they go on
Yeah.
to describe what they've seen around them, the nature, the trees, the
Mhm.
sea, the everything else. We've spent a lot of time talking about some of the challenges, and these challenges are real and aren't to be underestimated. But let's look at opportunity now. What do you see as the opportunity that's emerging as we're looking forward at what the future of work could look like?
Well, I think it's the opportunity to treat people as human beings again, and more care and appreciation and attention towards well-being. And an organization can put in a blanket policy for that and say, okay, well, we'll bring some fruit in, or we'll have a weekly yoga class offered. Or to me, those are just peripheral offerings.
Mm.
That, I mean, they're, don't get me wrong, those are all great things, but I think it has to start at the level of the human relationship, the relationship with my boss, how my boss treats me and what they expect of me, and the trust that they give me. And we did a webinar lately called Is Your Hybrid Workplace Truly Flexible? Because I was hearing a lot of organizations moving hybrid, but making it you're required to come in these certain days of the week. And, they're really touting hybrid, but true hybrid is flexibility, and you need to have trust in the people, and that requires an upskilling of leadership. So I think there's a call to action for building more great leaders, growing more great leaders, and it's those great organizations where people will gravitate towards, and that'll be able to retain talented human beings, because too often we just treat people like workers and like robots. And yeah, it's just it really loses its heart. So there's a real opportunity to increase well-being. And I think the rise of human consciousness is that we are we are spiritual beings, right? And I used to be hesitant to bring up spirituality in the context of org psychology, because we're all based on data and science and the five senses. And that I really think the spiritual element, whatever you want to call it and know it as, is a really important element in getting to the next level of well-being for our society, our world, and our workplaces.
And I love that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. You said earlier about, we need to develop our leaders in. How do we help leaders be better in this transition and however this unfolds? What do they need in order to become better leaders?
They need to develop the skills and be trained on the elements that don't come naturally to them, right? So all of us are wired differently. What we're really good at as organizational psychologists and at Humans, and then at Work Evolution, which is the organization we founded around hybrid and remote leadership, what we're really good at is, okay, Andy, what are Andy's strengths as a leader? What are her challenges? We're able to assess that, and we're able to really support the development of the competencies or capabilities. So we're able to say, like, let's meet a leader where they're at, and let's help develop them in a non-judgmental, supportive type of way. So whether it's micro-learning paths, we do a lot of paths in the kind of the e-learning space, but more interactive, because I think e-learning can be too passive and isolating, but more interactive, micro-learning, blended learning, or one-on-one assessment, coaching. We like to meet them where they're at. And it's not just a matter of, let's bring in a training workshop. Let's have you speak for an hour, Dr. Laura, and tell us what we need to do as hybrid leaders, and then we'll go off and do it. That's not, that's just touching the surface of it. It's like saying, hey, do you want to become an engineer, and let's put you in a week-long training, and then you're off to the races. It's like a lifelong, there's more skill practice needed and bumps along the way and support, but organizations are hesitant sometimes to invest in this because it's an intangible. You can't always see the direct ROI instantly, but people will speak with their feet. They'll leave the organization if there's poor leadership, and if they don't feel trusted and supported as human beings, they will leave.
Oh, exactly. And I would have thought that your support and expertise is in great demand right now. How do you see your role evolving as the future of work continues to unfold?
That is really true. So it is in demand. There's no doubt we've been really busy. But I'd also say there's a lot of organizations that I know need what we're doing, but they just can't get it through we need to invest in that. We need to invest in our people. And the pushback can be cost, right? Of course, but with cost, it's because they haven't prioritized it. They haven't put a budget in place for developing leaders. Also, it's time. This is actually even more than cost lately. It's, how do we fit that in? How do we fit in mental health training for leaders?
Wow.
How do we fit in? Because we're too busy. Our leaders are too busy. So can you do 1 hour twice a year or something? It's like, really? Right? And it's just the hundreds of hours of impact these leaders are having on the human beings, and they're not getting their own oxygen mask on first. They're not getting supported as leaders, that it just is this machine. I call it the machine.
It is machine-like.
Yeah, right? You're in a hamster wheel, boom, 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 or a machine or conveyor belts. And it's like, oh my gosh, right? It's easy to judge from the outside, but when you're in the machine and your performance is rated on financial bottom line success, and you need to stay in that hamster wheel, and you don't see beyond that. You don't see if we could improve our human-centric culture, it actually would impact our bottom line in the long run, because the cost of attrition and turnover is huge, but they just don't see that if they're just in the immediate reactive state.
I'm actually not too sure what to say about that. I know how I feel about that, which is the most obvious thing, which is people being their most valuable asset, and to value that asset as 2 hours a year, as an example, doesn't really say very much for as to where they place their people on a priority list.
Yeah. And I think the language of their valuable asset or resource. I did a podcast recently with someone I really admire in the culture and belonging space, who I consider one of my mentors as well, Lauren Rubis. And he was saying even the language of people are our greatest resource or asset needs to change, because it just implies people are something, like something to be used for a purpose. It gets away from people are truly valued as the human beings they are, the diverse human beings they are. It just, and he described it way better than I am. So it's on my podcast, but it's just powerful, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's, people aren't a commodity.
Yeah, yeah.
And with soft skills are becoming more and more important as we go, right? And actually aptitude is critical right now. It doesn't matter if you don't have the technical skills, because technical skills, can be taught. Aptitude is something that's natural. It's in us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's refreshing on the one hand to see some organizations really valuing that now, and really understanding, oh, okay, well, that person doesn't come from our sector. They don't have our expertise. But having gone through whatever psychometric tests or behavioral economics, there's a great tool out there that looks at behavioral economics over and above, are you introvert? Are you extrovert? Actually, have you got empathy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we measure that so we have a distributed leader profiler, which assesses your skills, your strengths, and your gaps for leading from a distance, whether it's in the same city, okay, flexible, remote, or hybrid workers in the same city, or remote workers across the globe, right? But gratitude and empathy are part of that assessment, because all of our research, we've been researching this for almost 20 years, by the way, but all of our research is around, like, it's those soft skills that matter. But it's also some skills around how do you manage meetings to be efficient, effective, and engaging, right?
Yes.
So, that we're in way too many meetings. It's ridiculous. And meetings are not very intentional. And again, it's like the hamster wheel of meetings. And they're really killing productivity, and they're killing innovation, because people don't have the space to innovate, because they're always in meetings. And some of us innovate by talking it through, but a lot of us innovate by having space, and reflection time.
Yeah.
And time in nature, Andy, like your beautiful background. I bet you go on walks there, am I right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, and I'm very fortunate because this is a number of hours from home, but home is also surrounded by nature. And I don't know if you saw it. I put a wonderful post up on Monday from a walk, beautiful big trees in the area, lots of birds. And literally that was my post on Monday. And I have to say, it's probably had one of the biggest interactions I've had in a while, because so many people resonated with that in terms of, wow, isn't that just beautiful?
Isn't that amazing? People
Yeah.
just want back to the basics. They want back to the beauty of nature. And when life is difficult, I think we need to go back into nature, and really appreciate the beauty of the world we're in, because for all its pain and difficulty, it's still a beautiful world. And a lot of people still have very, very noble and generous intentions and bravery and courage and all those things. But it's easy to focus on the minority that are more greedy, self-serving, egotistical, narcissistic, tyrannical. But like there always are those people. There always have been those people.
Yes.
But I think the media we just get so much of it in our faces, and it's like, oh, the human race is just a disaster. But there's so much good. Would you agree?
I do, and it's great. I was talking before about the fact that we are on a mission to build a community of 30,000 people, and that's because there is so much goodness in the human spirit. Of course, there will always be those bad eggs. Of course, there are, but actually, it's wonderful to see and continue to witness over the last couple of years how communities have come together.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree. I would really agree. And I'm trying to, you asked my role in the future of work. So it's the work I'm doing with organizations, for profit, nonprofit, government, just bringing in the organizational psychology, that I've built, like the best practices, the tools, the training that I've built. And it's also about my Dr. Laura, Where Work Meets Life podcast, like you, becoming an inspiration to as many people as I can, and bringing topics at the intersection of work and life, which I really feel is where it's at. Work and life need to both be well in order to really thrive as human beings, not humans doing.
Laura, that's really hit home with me. Humans being rather than humans doing. Um, and it's something I know I am guilty of, which is another reason why I was selfishly looking forward to having you on as a guest today, because you have so much insight. I know how passionate you are about it. I've heard you talk at events in the past, and reached out straight away to say that was just phenomenal. So that passion comes across with what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you, Sam. I just really appreciate being on your community and part of your community. And I think it's people like us who just want to make a difference and get the word out there that there's hope, there's optimism, and there's a way to make workplaces and the future of work better than it was before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think by everyone sort of coming together as we are and sharing our expertise, our experiences, we can create insight. And that's the thing that's so incredibly powerful, right?
Exactly. I totally agree.
Laura, thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful as ever to see you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and just for bringing so much energy to the show today. It's been lovely to see you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thanks for doing all that you're doing, Sam, to make this world a better place.
Oh, likewise, Laura, and hopefully catch up soon.
Yes,
Take
absolutely.
care.
You too.